Well, let's now talk about what's unfolding in Niger. The country's elected president has been captured, the military has seized power, closed the country's borders, installed a prime minister and a 21-person cabinet. It's almost as if the junta is now waiting for the world to react to its actions. But before we get to that, let's talk about some basics. First, this is where Niger is located, at the heart of the Sahel region, an area where terror groups like the ISIS and Al-Qaeda are rapidly expanding over the years. Several countries have actually sent troops to Niger. Why, you ask? Well, to guarantee security. France has around 1,500 troops in Niger. The Americans, more than 1,000 troops across 2 bases. Italy has 300 troops there, and the European Union has another at least 100 troops or thereabouts in Niger. And yet, together, these troops have somehow failed to check extremism and terrorism. Attacks on Niger's villages have become the new normal, and Niger's economy has taken a hit. The military pointed at this economic and geopolitical insecurity when overturning the elected government. Guess what? Many actually celebrated this coup. But frankly, toppling a democracy is normally very bad news, even if it's something that many saw coming, like in Niger, a former French colony with a history of several coups. So how did the world react? The ECOWAS, or the Economic Community of West Africa States, put Niger's junta on a hard deadline. They're given until the 6th of August to restore the elected government. The junta refused to stand down. Instead, it closed the country's airspace. On the 10th of May, ECOWAS leaders met for a summit in Nigeria. Speaking of Niger, the bloc said all options are open, including the use of force.
You will see from the communique of this extraordinary summit that no option is taken off the table, including the use of force.
Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger.
There you have it, the bloc activating its standby force. But what does this mean for the region's security? Remember, the foreign troops still remain in Niger. There's also talk of Russia's private mercenary group, the Wagner group, sending troops to Niger. This after the Wagner boss has openly supported the coup. The obvious question is, what next? And for more on the situation now in Niger, we have with us David Otto, Director for Geneva Center for Africa Securities and Strategic Studies. David, thank you so much for being with us. What is the latest that you can tell us on the situation in Niger? And is it actually going to become a wider war of some sort?
Well, literally, ECOWAS has declared war against the military junta in Niger's republic. And of course, but what we know so far is that, it made 2 decisions, which are quite key and crucial. One, it asked the Chief of Defense Staff, that's the Chief of Securities within all the ECOWAS member states, it asked them to activate the ECOWAS standby force, meaning that, they should prepare for a military intervention, and it asked them to deploy the ECOWAS standby force to restore, the constitutional rule. But it doesn't actually give the time frame as to when this intervention will take place.
But of course, one question is whether it just gets restricted to what's happening in West Asia and West Asian countries getting involved. Could there be a broader involvement, perhaps getting in some of the European countries as well, is the other question. I mean, the Wagner group obviously is there, and there's some talk that that could be supporting the junta. Many other European powers also have some soldiers out there. Do you think it could become a broader conflict involving them as well?
We're likely to see a disintegration of ECOWAS into 2 factions, which could possibly be another proxy war, some kind of a Ukraine playing over, this time around Niger. What we're likely to see, again, as you rightly mentioned, is that possibly Wagner may join the faction of Niger, including Burkina Faso and Mali. I think simply because the Wagner de facto leader, not sure whether he still heads that group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, he made it very clear that the coup in Niger was a demonstration and an indication of the clamping down of colonialism and Western influence in that region. So he is likely to influence perhaps the ECOWAS, the Wagner forces that are based in that region to support.
All right, David Otto, thank you so much for joining us. Enough conflict, I think, in the world, but sadly, no signs that it's going to ease in Niger anytime in the near future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.